Hey guys, my name is Joanna, also known as Just Another Flutist here on YouTube. And you guys might have noticed over the last couple of weeks, I've been doing videos sort of in this like super casual style with my DSLR pointed upwards using a tiny tripod just on my desk. I was starting to feel a little bit burnt out doing a super produced version of my videos. The lights that are on right now are literally just the lights that are in my room. I have drawn my curtains though because the sun is setting outside and I don't want that to upset the lighting of this video too much. And I'm not the only person feeling like this lately. Pretty much everyone I know is pretty much going insane for these last 2 months. All around me, I've been surrounded by people who are overwhelmed. Life is life, and sometimes too much is going on at the same time, you know? That ironically inspired me to make today's video, which is about how you deal with burnout. You guys are actually actively watching me deal with it right now. As an extra note before we begin, I want to say that feeling kind of burnt out is a normal feeling, especially for an artist. It's not abnormal and nothing is wrong with you. Just know that there are a lot of people out there who either have been through the same thing as you or they are going through the same thing as you at the same time. It's just that a lot of people don't like to talk about it because I think sometimes it's seen as kind of a shameful thing to have when you are an artist. Especially, you know, as a musician, you're always kind of called upon to constantly create, constantly make music, constantly performing. That's why I'm making this video. We're in this together. So my first thought to do with this whole situation is that music is an art. But the thing with all the arts is that they not only require all the exploration and the exciting parts and the fun parts, right? It requires a lot of discipline. Whether you are in film or if you're a painter, if you are a sculptor, musician, anything in the arts, you know that in order to do your craft, you have to be disciplined. You have to practice all the time. You have to keep yourself not motivated, but disciplined to do your craft and learn your craft well. Nobody starts out amazing from the beginning. You are driven to high levels of whatever it is you do through constant practice, discipline. And I think what happens when we start to burn out, we end up focusing too much on the discipline side and we forget to explore. That's where I find that is where you start to get really tired. That's when you start to run out of ideas. That's when you start to feel really alone and you start to kind of like lose interest in what you're doing. It's because you're kind of just doing the same thing over and over and over again without any element of like true exploration. There's no element of, I want to see what happens if I do this, if I do that. When there's no room for that kind of exploration, that's when you can end up accidentally killing off your passion. But the thing is, as humans, it's kind of impossible to not go through that period of, you know, or several periods of accidental loss of exploration and loss of fun, like I have been experiencing for the last few weeks. You will go through a period of, ooh, I need to step back and find myself again. And that's normal. You should expect that you will be doing that, you know, from time to time as an artist. Now, the way I have decided to approach that is by taking you guys along for that part of the journey too. You may have noticed that there are several YouTubers out there who will actually like take breaks from being on YouTube. For me, rather than just taking a break from YouTube and then like finding myself by myself again and stuff like that, I found that at least for the last few weeks, and maybe this will continue for another few weeks, excluding my Flute Center of New York reviews, by the way. Those ones are still going to be very produced. Those ones are sponsored. But the unsponsored videos, I'm feeling like I need to find a way to make them super down to earth and super raw because that's what I need right now. I need to have a space where I don't have to perform. I can really explore thoughts, my deeper reflections. I can really explore how I see music, how I approach music. And I found that I have been able to do that in the last few weeks, like just stepping back from being super produced on camera has helped me come up with ideas like sight read with me. I would not have thought of that otherwise. My second thought to do with burnout and why we burn out, the thought that keeps coming through my head is like, what's the point? What's the point of working so hard? What's the point of doing this day in and day out? What's the point of doing this week in and week out? I realize that you're only asking yourself that question because you, at that point in your life, have lost the fun of doing what it is you're doing. What is the point of, practicing the same thing over and over again if you don't in some way find it really fun? That's why you can practice the same thing over and over and over again before and not have lost your drive and your motivation to keep doing it. But now when you do the same thing, maybe you've lost your drive and motivation. Like, what's the difference there? I think that's the most confusing part, is when you do hit a period of your life where you are feeling burnt out. The first question in your mind is, why am I feeling this way, right? At least for me, I think it's when I lose the sense that this is not work, that this is what I'm passionate about. I'm interested in this. I want to keep looking into this. I would encourage you to try and see what's the difference between the feeling you had before doing the same thing versus now. Allow yourself some time to reflect on it. It might not be the same reason as what I found was for myself. For myself, it was really like I lost the sense of fun. My solution to that was, how do I get the fun back? And for me, I was like, what am I stressing over? For my videos, I was stressing over the fact that I had to schedule in extra time to do my makeup. It takes anywhere from half an hour to 45 minutes to put on my makeup because eyelashes can be hard. Sometimes it'll take up to anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes to set up my lighting. And then it'll take another 20-ish minutes to do camera tests, make sure everything's working. Then you take another half an hour, 45 minutes to actually film. And then after that, you have to tear down. Tear down takes 10-ish minutes, 10, 15. Tear down is always faster. And then I have to take off my makeup too, which is another 10, 15 minutes. So all that time really adds up, and I felt like I was really pressed for time. So I decided that I should just strip all of that away and just have the fun part. The fun part is the filming and the editing. Now that I've done that for a few weeks, I realized that I actually did the same thing on the flute. When I was feeling burnt out on the flute, what I did was I stripped down my practicing so that it was only me playing the stuff that I like to play. I literally gave myself like a vacation, like a flute vacation, where I could just play things that made me feel good. So I played repertoire that made me feel good. I would listen to recordings and I would listen to soundtracks from movies, video games, etc. And I would just try and figure it out on the flute. Essentially, you are actually kind of like taking away the discipline part and you're only having the fun part. Essentially, you're like reminding yourself why you find it fun. You're reminding yourself why this is something you're passionate about. And what I find is that in the midst of you having fun again and learning to have fun again, you start to realize that there are some things that you would like to improve. So you do actually kind of find yourself like, working a little harder on those parts that you want to improve before you get back into the fun. And that's kind of how you can work in the discipline again. You find specific things that you actually want to improve on for yourself, and then you go and you work on those parts. My last reflection is that, I realized that we actually learn through having fun. We learn through play. It's kind of like how children play house. They say, you're the mommy, I'm the daddy, and we have these kids and now let's play house. Or they say like, I'm the doctor and you're the patient and we're going to play and I'm going to like listen for your heartbeat. They are practicing through fun, through play, how to human. Where can they imitate their parents or their uncles, their aunts, their teachers, right? Where can they imitate how they act, right? Is when they play school, when they play house, when they play doctor, right? I kind of find it weird that we lose that. We tend to lose that, at least as adults. We tend to lose that play factor. If you think back to what you remember the most of what you learned back in school, it's probably because you learned it through some form of play, through some form of fun. Even when we practice on our own, we need to build the fun back in so that it really does help our brains learn. I think also part of burnout is when you feel like you're not learning anything. You can see me kind of going in circles now, right? Like you get burned out because you're not learning, but you're not learning because you're not having fun. We have to value fun as part of art, as part of learning. For those of you who are older, you may be like me and you remember a time where you were completely obsessed with the flute. I mean, I'm still obsessed with the flute, but not at that particular level. There's this kind of childlike wonder that comes with a young person, a really young person, being obsessed with the flute, being obsessed with a musical instrument. There's so much to learn, and it's so fun to learn all of it. As adults, we need to work that back into our system. I often encourage my students to, like, if they run into a particular day where they really don't feel like practicing, where they're feeling really stumped, they're feeling really discouraged, I actually tell my students to take the day off of practicing. Use that day to do what I call procrastination, all right? Basically, you end up practicing things that you're not supposed to be practicing right now, hence like a procrastination type of practicing. And I even go as far as just to tell them to just have fun. Have days where you're just playing Harry Potter music. Have days where you're just playing Lord of the Rings music. You need to remind yourself why you're doing this. One of the tunes that I was really obsessed with was the Mr. Tumnus's Lullaby from the Chronicles of Narnia. It's so low and juicy, and I hadn't touched it for a while, and I had been working on my low register notes for a long time. And I ran into one of those days where I was just like, nothing feels fun on the flute that I'm practicing at all. So I ended up procrastinating and just kind of like decided to look back on like old tunes that I have figured out. So of course, one of the tunes that I ended up going back to was Mr. Tumnus's Lullaby. And I realized, I was like, whoa, I can make it sound even better than, a year or two ago when I last played it. I can really make those low register notes pop. Hearing myself do that was oddly encouraging. It was like, wait a second, like there is a point to me working so hard on the low notes, like just drumming out those low notes over and over and over and over again to like make them better and better and better. When you are working on things like tone and technique development, you really feel like you're just kind of barely inching along. To go back to a tune that I hadn't touched in a few years and noticing how much better it sounded after I had worked so hard on those low notes, it kind of reawakened my desire to go back and work on my tone even more. You can actually inspire yourself, is what I'm saying. Like, you don't always need an outside person or an outside influence. Honestly, inspiring yourself is like one of the best ways to get yourself to practice, because it means that you can do more than you think you can. There you have it. I hope that was helpful for you guys. I hope you guys don't mind the super casual setting that we've got going on here. I felt like it was very appropriate for what we were talking about. So let me know in the comments below what you guys are going through now. Are you guys going through a burnout, and how are you dealing with it? Just share. We're all here for you. And with all that said, if you like this video, make sure you give me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit the bell icon too, just if you want to get notifications every time I post. This is my last video, which I will put a link to up here. If you want to support me, head on over to my Patreon. Otherwise, you can find me on my social media networks, which are also listed down below. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.